Alright, hello everyone. This is new, I guess. It's not really new, but I guess it's bringing something back. I'm doing live commentary during a recording, which I haven't done in a very long time. I think probably the Cardinals off-season from year 1 to year 2 was probably the last time I did like a live audio recording. I did record a channel update that I scrapped, but I'm probably going to make a new one since the 3-year anniversary of KCSN is coming upon us, so I wanted to make an update with that. But with all that being said, we're stalling for time here because we are playing MVP Baseball 2005. Now, I've wanted to play this game probably since I've started this channel, but there have been a couple obstacles in my way. Number one is all the tech stuff I had to deal with in getting this channel to where it is right now. And the other thing is actually physically playing the game. I just, for some reason, no matter how hard I try or how many times I've tried, I cannot play this game. I'm terrible at it. Can't get the hang of it. I don't want to blame the equipment here. A bad carpenter blames his tools, right? Something like that. But I'm not sure if there's like an input between like OBS and like the little third-party controller I use for my PS2, or if I really am just that bad, which is possible. And I know this game, I think, does have like sliders and stuff, so I could probably tweak it to where it would be playable for me. That might be something I look into, but I figured for the first time, the first go-around on the channel, I would just simply attempt to kind of treat it like out of the park baseball or just like football manager, you know, and just kind of do like a GM mode and just see if I can figure that out. Because the other thing too is just the learning curve of these games. You know, I've played Madden and NCAA a billion times, so I know those games work. I can figure out any team, any year, it doesn't matter. But in like baseball and basketball and even hockey, like those games all play differently, and I didn't really play those growing up, so I have to like learn how to play the games first, and then it's like, okay, and then I can learn the players, and then I can learn the teams and stuff. So because I didn't grow up watching a lot of these sports either. Like I didn't become a baseball fan until I became an adult within the last like 6-7 years. So yeah. So, but anyway, I love baseball now, so I really want to give MVP Baseball 2005 a shot because it seems like an amazing game that I just kind of missed out on when I was a kid. I missed the wave. But as you can see, probably from the title, the thumbnail, and now the screen in front of you for the last 2.5 minutes, we are going to be taking over the Washington Nationals. So in MVP Baseball 2005, it is the first season of the Washington Nationals after the Expos moved from Montreal. As we all know how that went. They are still playing in the NL East, as you can see in our rivals, and this is kind of how the shakeup of things are going to go. I don't know if the whole series is going to be like this. I tried recording some without doing the commentary, or just kind of doing a trial run just on my own to see how the game works, and I realized, like, man, I kind of have to commentate a lot of this stuff. Like, flipping through these menus is going to be hard for me to remember when I edit back and try to do, like VO after the fact. It might just be easier to just do this with every episode, but either way, taking a look at the Nationals, they're ranked 22nd in the majors. They are 27th in pitching. They're 14th as far as batting goes, 12th in fielding, and 8th in overall speed, or I guess base running. It's probably fair. And then our AAA affiliate, the New Orleans Zephyrs, are 17th in AAA. I don't know how much this really matters, but Harrisburg is 10th, and then Potomac is 19th. So in the off-screen trial run I did of this, our single A affiliate was like amazing, and then AAA got off to a hot start, and then they kind of bottomed out, and then the Double A was kind of like also around like 500. It was kind of funny. But anyway, let's take a look at the team goals here. Now, obviously, within the first 3 years of the contract, they want us to finish top 8 of MVP. I assume they just want one of our players to finish top 8 in MVP voting. Win 110 MLB home games, which isn't terrible when you think about it. Like, if you go 500, you already achieve most of that goal. You know what I mean? So as long as we play around 500 over the first 3 years of the contract, we should be able to achieve that pretty easily. And then maintain a 480 win percentage is difficult. So that means by at least year 2 or 3, the team's got to be pretty well over 500 to kind of even that out. You really only have like 1 year of like actually sucking for room. And then, of course, the stretch goals. I'm not super worried about the stretch goals. They're there if you want to see them. But budget, we have a little over $67 million. Our payroll is a little over $12 million less than that. So we got a little bit of room for this, but we're going to move ahead now. And I guess the first thing here is to the team management, checking over our rosters, of course. I turned off the team chemistry, at least I think I did. I might have messed around with that, but in my experience in that first trial run I did, it didn't really do much of anything other than just kind of, I don't know, make me mad. It didn't make a ton of sense. It was just like you'd get like a bench player who's batting like $150, and he's not even playing every day. And he's like, yeah, I'm unhappy about my contract. Like, hey, GM, let's talk about this. Like, no, I'm not going to talk about, your contract. Like, you're not even going to probably be on the team next year, so I don't care. But this is the first kind of trial run we get here with the roster, these positional rankings here. I'm trying to just sort everyone from A to double A, and then to single A. In another series I watched of this, I saw someone do this because, try to do a little bit of research to at least understand the game a bit more, because, again, I did not grow up playing this game, and so a lot of this is new territory to me, trying to figure out how this game goes. I'm barely even halfway competent when it comes to playing out-of-the-park baseball. It's a very difficult game for me to learn, but it's a lot more complex than this game for the PlayStation 2 designed for like children and preteens, so I should be able to at least figure it out better than one of the most in-depth baseball management games of all time. So I'm going to edit out the rest of this whole positional thing here, so we'll cut back in when we go over the rosters here in a second. Alright, so now that the positional rankings are done, I'm done sorting everybody. This is kind of a good screen I was using at the start of my trial run to kind of take a look at the organization as a whole, at least as far as offense is concerned. Like, you can just kind of look at things, like, see how things are at the MLB level, and of course throughout your farm. So as you can see, we really don't have a strong catching prospect in the organization much at all. Our major league catchers are decent enough at their job, so that might be where we just kind of invest in and don't really kind of worry about the farm or bringing someone up. We might need to find a prospect to replace them in the future, but that's how catcher kind of stacks up. At first, again, we have two pretty serviceable major league first basemen on this team here, and it looks like we might have a decent enough prospect here at double A at first base, but other than that, it's pretty barren in the organization as well. Looking at second base, again, we have a very solid option at second base at the major league level, and then maybe our triple and double A prospects might turn into something here, but they're kind of a far shot from Vidro. So and then again at third base, it's more of the same, but at least we have an actual prospect here who could actually be fairly decent. He's got a picture, so he's a real guy. He's a real man. But there is at least somebody at third that we can kind of perhaps look to in the near future. And then at shortstop, we have a few prospects that we might want to highlight here. Even down here in single A, we have a pretty decent one. So these guys might be moving around throughout the organization a lot throughout the season, trying to manage the minors as much as possible. And then in the outfield, we at left, we really don't have anything solid. But of course, as we know, a lot of these guys' secondary positions, are center or right. So if we have prospects anywhere at center or right field in the organization, we can easily move them around and stuff. And of course, there's always a chance that some of these major league guys will stick around for what we're doing here. And as you can see here with center, we have a great prospect here in single A. And even our triple and double A prospects are no slouch either. So we're pretty loaded at the center position, which is really important because these guys can really just slot around anywhere if they all pan out into something. And then in right, it's not so much of the same here. It's kind of closer, resembling to what left field kind of looked like. But perhaps our double A prospect is a little bit better. But yeah, that's our positional rankings, how they stack up. So here I'm going to go to our batting order, and then this is how I like to overlook the actual roster itself. So So in left, our starter is Brad Wilkinson. He is a career 259 hitter, 72 home runs. You know, I don't really like to look at the career stats because this is back in an era when all the advanced stats that we use today were not looked upon. So I'm just going to focus on the attributes mostly. So he is fairly decent hitting against lefties and has power against righties, but his contact against righties is a pretty steep fall off. So, but he has really good plate discipline. He's probably not going to walk, or he's probably not going to strike out a lot. He will walk a lot. So that's really nice to see. He's very durable. He's not too bad as far as base running goes, but I mean, not super great either. But his defensive metrics here, those attributes are pretty solid. So Brad Wilkerson is looking to be like a pretty decent part of this team here. And then of course, look at the contract here. He's only making $3.10 million. Jeez Louise, he's making $3.10 million, but he's only got a year left on that deal. So that's going to be a decision that we're going to have to look at. So moving on to our next player here, we have Christian Guzman. In short, I think Guzman was a pretty serious guy for the Nationals, at least at this time early on. But again, I don't know much about baseball history, especially from the 2000s. So the career trajectory of Mr. Christian Guzman, I'm not entirely familiar with. So that might add something to this for you, or it might take some away. So I apologize in advance if that bothers you, but we're gonna go with it as we get into it. So Christian Guzman has great contact against lefties, not a whole lot of power, and he doesn't hit righties that well either, which is to be expected from a shortstop. So as long as he has really good solid contact against one of the two, then he can fulfill a pretty decent role in the lineup, you know, with that. So he's a great bunter, I guess, whatever that matters. Yeah, so his defensive metrics and base running are kind of all over the place. I mean, there's some things to kind of look at, like the range and the throwing accuracy, but his base running ability is pretty low, and his stealing aggressiveness is pretty low as well. So not the best, I guess, but there's definitely going to be a need for him somewhere, and for 4 years at 4.2, we're going to be seeing a lot of him. He might be a trade chip, something that we move in the future, depending on how well he plays. Who knows? It'll be something to keep an eye on for sure. And then at second base, we have Jose Vidro, of course. Still wearing the Expos gear, which I think is hilarious in this game. He's a career 304 hitter, so just a pure hitter by the looks of it, which is shocking because his hitting numbers are not that great. So he's got great contact against righties, and he's got a little bit of power against righties, and of course he does not hit lefties all that well. His plate discipline's down to about an 80, but still he shouldn't strike out too much. And then yeah, dude, he's not very fast, obviously, and he won't steal very much, but he's a good base runner, I guess, for what that's worth. And his defensive metrics are just, you know, in the same ballpark, I guess, of where everyone else has been. He's going to make 4.8 for the rest of this year. So, yeah. So, I mean, already these top three guys are making quite a bit of change. So that's going to be something to focus on. And it's funny how Jose Vidro and Christian Guzman are switch hitters when we just looked at their batting attributes, and they don't really hit both very well. So I don't see if there'd be much of a need for either of them to switch hit. It might be pretty beneficial to just have Jose Vidro hit against righties and then have Christian Guzman hit against lefties. So either way, we're moving into third base. We have Vinny Castilla. He is going to be our third baseman. He's hitting 280, but he's also 37 years old, which is the thing to highlight. In my first trial run of this, I tried to make him a trade chip, because if there's a team that could just use a productive third baseman, you know, that's in a competitive spot here, he makes a bit of money, and I don't think we're going to get much from him at 37 years old. So if we can even get just like a pitching prospect or something, that would be kind of cool to me. So he's got good power against both lefties and righties, so he's going to be, you know, we're going to expect a lot off of that bat from Mr. Castilla, but he also has pretty solid contact against righties. It's not too far down on lefties either, so he should be one of the parts of our lineup that we should really expect a lot out of, but his plate discipline is pretty bad, so looks like he's swinging for the fences or just swinging at nothing, so not great, but... And then obviously he's a terrible base runner, which is going to be important because, you know, if you're hitting home runs, you don't need a base run, I guess. but yeah, so and his fielding stats are pretty solid too. I'm not too mad about that. But yeah, for the next 2 years, he's going to be making over $3 million. It's a similar deal that Brad Wilkinson is on. So yeah, if we can move off of some of these expensive vets, that would kind of be cool. I mean, it's just tying up a lot of money here, and I don't know if this offense is really good enough to compete. So that's why we need to kind of look into this. So moving on to Jose Guillen. I'm going to assume that's how you say his name, Mr. Guillen. A career 274 hitter here. He's got good power, or I guess just average power against lefties and righties, but his contact is virtually the same against both. So kind of like Vinny Castilla, he's going to be one of our just like true hitters who we're just going to really depend on to produce a lot of offense. These are guys who are probably going to hit closer to the top of the order because, yeah, I mean, these are the guys who we can probably rely on the most to hit consistently against both handedness, which is going to be important. I don't know if this roster has a lot of that we can rely on, so and yeah, his stats overall, speed, base running, fielding, yeah, it's fine. He's an all-around pretty decent player, so we're going to depend on him a lot, but he's only here for another year, so again, going to have to look at that again. So moving down to first base, Nick Johnson, another fairly young player here. He's got good power against lefties, and his numbers elsewise are pretty similar, so he's going to hit about the same, I guess. You can just expect him to hit lefties as well as you can righties, but if he's going to hit a lefty, you should expect it to go long. That's a thing to note too, is that so far, trying to see how much like actual power there is in this lineup, there's only been like 3 guys so far who actually have like a decent enough power number where it's like, yeah, we can really kind of depend on them to do something. I was looking at contact, so excuse me. So Nick Johnson's not going to hit for power, but he can hit lefties fairly well. So this is something to consider when we're looking at, of course, setting up our lineup. So, and he also has good plate discipline, which I like as well. But his base running is absolutely horrendous. He's a terrible base runner, and he's not the best defender either. So, yeah, this is pretty bad. His durability is pretty low too, so he might be getting injured a bit. So that's a pretty big downside to a guy who really is only upside so far is just being able to hit lefties. So, Termal Sledge, what a name, dude. What a name. Oh, I got the lineups with lefties on, so I guess with DH on. I just can't speak. Jeez. All right. There we go. This is better. All right. So Endy Chavez is going to be holding down center field for us. He is not great of a hitter. He's got good contact against righties, but that's really about it. So he's going to be a pure like righty guy. We might need to slot him out for someone else against lefties because he really just doesn't hit that well against them really at all. And his discipline's nowhere near good enough to kind of rely on that matchup. So we're going to need to play around with that. He is a pretty excellent base runner, though. His defense isn't that great, but he's a good base runner. So, and he is fairly inexpensive, so that's good to see too. That's the first like inexpensive role player I've seen on this team. Everyone else is under like some serious money, and then Endy Chavez is like a role player that's making role player money. So, and then our catcher Brian Schneider is going to round things out here in our lineup. Just again, we don't expect much from the bat of a catcher here. His contact against righties is really the best thing to really point out, but that's about it. His plate discipline isn't terrible, I guess, but base running is of course terrible, and his defense is pretty good too. So, yeah, and he's making about $2 million. Heading to the bench here, we have Gary Bennett. He is again not a great hitter. He's consistent against the lefties, so he might start for us against lefties on those days. And then, yeah, not a great base runner either, and his defense is considerably worse than Schneider's is, so that's something to point out, but he's not making that much money, so that's cool. Will Cordero is our backup, or our bench first baseman. He's got pretty consistent hitting numbers. He hits lefties decently enough. I don't know if he hits them a whole lot better than Nick Johnson does. Or no, Nick Johnson, that was just one thing, right? He has good contact against lefties. So we have 2 first basemen who can hit lefties, and that's about it. They can't do much else. So his plate discipline is, I think, better, though, than Nick Johnson's was. But his defense is bad. It's not good, and he sucks at base running. So Will Cordero really doesn't have a whole lot of use to this team. Hopefully there's someone in the farm that can replace him, because this is really just kind of a worthless guy to keep around, especially at 33 years old. There's not much really worth keeping him for. Jamie Carroll is our backup third baseman here, or I guess just infielder. He's kind of our utility guy, I guess. He hits righties pretty well, so he might slot in that role if we can't get much out of Jose Vidro or Vinny Castilla, or even Nick Johnson. This might be the guy that we call on to hold down one of those infield positions and just, get the offense rolling a little bit. His defense is pretty solid as well. Bad base runner, obviously we know. And then, yeah, he's making a little money. So, and then we have Termal Sledge, who was going to DH in our DH lineups. but without the DH because we are in the National League. Here are his numbers. So he hits pretty consistently well against righties. His lefty numbers are bad. His play discipline is pretty decent too, just kind of in that C to C plus range. And then his defense is decent enough here. He's durable. I mean, yeah, he's just a well-rounded player. You know, kind of like Jose Guillen is, but just a little bit worse. So he might slot in here in an everyday role, potentially, depending on how the offense plays out. And then we have Jeffrey Hammonds, who is going to round things out for us on our bench. His numbers are pretty bad. He's got decent power against righties, but it's considerably worse than I think anyone in our outfield on the team. So there's not much use for a 67 power against righties. Play discipline at 75 is decent, I guess. But again, he's 35. You got to look at the age because at 34, excuse me, there's not much need for any of this, and he's not durable at all. His defense isn't that great. So again, just another kind of waste of a spot here. This guy's definitely going to get replaced here. Already I can see that happening. So this is how the lineup against righties is kind of looking here. I'm going to shake this up here before I get into the simming of the games here. But this is how the roster kind of stacks up on offense, and then we're going to look at the pitching rotation now. Our ace, I guess, is Livian Hernandez. He has, there we go. So his stamina is up to 99. So yeah, he's just a pure starter at 30 years old. I thought he was older, but he's not. He's 30. His pickup is good, I guess, but he has a good fastball, and then that curveball is decent, and he has a good slider. So he's got a pretty good pitch mix. He's got 5 pitches that he can kind of switch between, but it looks like that four-seamer and that slider, maybe the curveball, is really all he's going to be kind of relying on. That changeup and sinker I can't see being all that effective. But yeah, that's going to be how he stacks up on that. And I'm going to look at the money here, and he's making $280 for the rest of this season. So depending on how he pitches, that might be something we look at. But I don't know if I'm trying to keep this core of Expos players. There's a reason that the Nationals are here in the first place. We have to remember that. And then Tony Armas Jr., looking at his numbers now, a career 4.21 ERA is not awesome, but he's got a good fastball as well and a good slider as well. The splitter's not bad, and the changeup is decent too. So looks like his 3 through 5 pitches are all within about the same range as far as numbers go. And his best 2 pitches are about the same too. So he's consistent with his pitching. You know, they're all about as good as each other, but you know, there's nothing really like super great that sticks out, but nothing too bad either. So for $2.1 million, again, 1 more year, so it looks like this rotation is going to have to be completely rebuilt in the offseason unless we bring back a lot of these guys. Again, another 1-year guy making $300K at 26 years old. So Zach Day here, he has a good fastball, probably one of the better fastballs on our team, and a decent enough splitter, and then the rest of his pitches, kind of like Tony Armas Jr., they're kind of all within the same range of each other. They're not great, but, you know, they're decent enough. Yeah, that fastball and the splitter is really what you're looking at there with him. So Tomooka, now we're going to look at here, another decent fastball on this team. Looks like everyone's got a good enough fastball. But other than that, his arsenal is really kind of weak. He doesn't really have any other solid pitches. I can see why he's like the 4 on this team. Because, yeah, he could be getting blown around a lot if that fastball is not there. So that might be something, an area of concern here, especially at 2.3. That's really not great, bro. Paying you just about as much as our ace, and you don't have nearly the stuff that he does. So, and then John Rauch, I guess Rauch, I don't know. Another good fastball here. The slider's decent enough. He doesn't have like a wide pitch mix. I mean, he's only got 4. The other one's got 5. But you know, the slider and 4-seamer are decent enough, and the changeup's not that bad either. So, but those are not pitches I'm going to rely on super hard. So we might have that 27th ranking with our pitching makes a lot of sense now as we look at it. Because yeah, these guys are not great, but they're pretty inexpensive for the most part. So Sunwoo Kim now, our first long relief pitcher that we're going to be looking at here. A career ERA over 5 is gross. Good fastball, changeup's okay, but yeah, that's about it. That's really all we're looking at. Nothing too much else to say here. He's making a little money here. And then Claudio Vargas, our other long relief pitcher, he's also very inexpensive, and he is got a decent fastball as well. Looks like everyone here at least has a fastball over 80, so I guess it's not much to look at. We'll just look at the other stuff. A changeup, slider, and 2-seamer that's consistent with itself, and a pretty bad curveball is really it. Joey Eiskin, he has Only 3 pitches in his arsenal, and they're all kind of as good as each other. Nothing super great here, so I guess if he can get outs with the four-seamer, he could probably do it with the slider and the slurve. So that's kind of what we're looking with him. Outside of that, that's kind of it. Joe Horgan. Again, good fastball, and everything else is garbage. So if his fastball's not there, this dude's going to get blown around the mound all game long, or all outing. He's going to get blown around. Our bullpen's very inexpensive, so looks like that's a place that's going to need some drastic upgrading, because this is probably where we're going to really struggle throughout the season. At least TJ Tucker has a good enough fastball to kind of rely on, because that slider and two-seamer are really not great. So, yeah. A consistent theme here with the middle relievers. And then Luis Ayala, is going to be our setup guy, and he's got a good fastball and sinker. So his changeup and slider are as good as each other, but he's got at least 2 good pitches that he can kind of rely on in his outing. So for a setup guy, that's kind of about it. If he can get like swings and misses or ground balls with those 2 pitches, then I'm not upset with that. And then Chad Cordero is going to be our closing pitcher, and his numbers are not good. So we don't really have a closer. Maybe our setup guy might need to slot into that role, because to have a closer who doesn't really have like a very strong definitive first pitch, I mean, I know his fastball stands out over the rest of his stuff, but that's not more so saying his fastball is good. It's just saying that the rest of his stuff is that bad. So the bullpen is going to be a huge area of concern that's going to need work all season long. I'm not going to sit here and go through all of our minor league rosters and stuff. I already kind of pointed out in the positional rankings the prospects that we have. If I call up or send anyone down, I'll focus on who I'm bringing up and talk about them. But other than that, yeah, this is how the Major League roster is kind of looking. And then the last thing I really want to look at now before I kind of call this one, because it's we're getting long here, and I hate making long videos. I've started editing my videos shorter for that reason. But the last thing we're going to look at here is we're going to look at the schedule and just see how our first month goes, because that's what's going to be in the next video is month number 1. We're going to see how we do. We start off with a road trip, a pretty extensive road trip against division opponents, the Phillies, the Marlins, and the Braves, before we finally get our home opener series we're playing at RFK. We're not playing at Nationals Park, or whatever they call it now, but we're playing at RFK, the dual use where the Redskins used to play. So that's where the inaugural season is, and where it's going to always be in this game. If I was playing owner mode, I could change that, but, we're just going to do Dynasty mode. But our first home series is against the Diamondbacks, and then we have a 2-game set against the Florida Marlins and the Atlanta Braves. And then we have another road series, this time against the Mets, before we come home again and face the Phillies for the second time this season, and then close off with the first 2 games of a 3-game set against the Mets. So that's what's going to be in the next video. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. It was a little bit long-winded. I like to ramble a lot. That's why I don't record like this a whole lot, because I just end up rambling. Yeah, that's how the team looks out. The offense is pretty decent. The rotation is very thin, and our bullpen is very, very bad. So that's how we're kind of looking at things moving ahead. So I hope to see you guys in the next video of this brand new series. We're going to give it a shot here, see how far we can make it. I might fail after the first year. Who knows? But it should be fun anyway. Get some baseball content on the channel that's not just sim stuff. So hope to see you guys in the next video here when we tackle our April of 2005 as GM of the Washington Nationals in their first year.